Hello, hello. Today I am going to be reading from, I think it's page 213, where I'm just going to read the introduction of the chapter 9. I've done a lot of like super editorial, like high exposition readings. So I'm just going to read through this as a little break from kind of like super, like, I guess, chatty chatty sessions. Okay, so hang in there. It's funny, look at my hair. I air dry my hair, so it's sort of like dealer's choice, sort of a chance thing. Okay, so the last reading was an overview of this chapter, and so I'm going to read the introduction, and I'm not going to do a lot of preamble here. So this is opening chapter 9. The sixth hub see insight and curiosity. And the opening quote, I realize I'm repeating from last time, but like, here we go. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. Helen Keller. So let's get into it. Hope you're having a good day so far. So the sixth hub supports decision making, clarity, ideas, and the vision required for playing an active role in creating your life in the world you live in. This hub can see patterns and truths in our families, cultures, and communities, including some that don't get discussed and some we may wish not to see. Both the sixth and seventh hub do not fully develop for many adults. If we don't develop in this hub, we strengthen reflexive biases, slowly decrease our curiosity over time, and become increasingly oblivious and unable to introspect and iterate, which results in becoming easier to control. The capabilities of this hub are often described using expansive language with words that connote mysticism like intuition and insight, so much so that we often overlook their practicality. Vision involves both how we see ourselves right now and what we believe is ultimately possible for ourselves, our potential. The sixth and seventh hubs offer the keys to unlock the ability to see yourself with ever increasing capability and capacity, yet they also contain the early programming and influences of limiting beliefs. They're where we find the cognitive tools of conscious reclamation supporting the entire Parinama method process, including the ability to see ourselves and others as products of circumstances that shape us, and to know that we can get involved in the process to create change. New beliefs require space that can be filled with our imagination and vision. See chapter 10. Well, let's start again. So, while you've been reading the Parinama method, your sixth and seventh hubs have been activated and are expanding in capacity because consciously reclaiming the lower hubs increases upper hub capacity. Yeah. So, intuition, ideation, and curiosity all thrive with the counterbalance of strength in our lower hubs. Something must be imagined and believed in, seen with the mind's eye, before it can become grounded in reality. Strong embodied lower hubs support our full potential by creating a foundation. In this hub, we can begin to see the transpersonal interconnectedness of everything, starting with how we affect our family and the people around us, which eventually extends farther into its the benefit of having had editors and proofreaders. I would have said further, which eventually extends farther into the vision for bringing change into the world. But keep in mind, there's no requirement that your vision changes the whole wide world. The notion that we should want to help others more than we want to help ourselves can be sanctimonious and shaming. Just by changing your own life, you change the world around you. You're participating in changing the world by affecting all the lives you touch. Wow, that surprises me to see that, because that feels like something that's become like a stronger knowing in as I've been reading this time around. And it's interesting. I mean, one of the things with this is to see that the quality of this book has this sort of deepening that remains consistent over the different processes coming into it. It's certainly beyond me. Okay. It doesn't need to be grandiose. Your capacity to believe and imagine only requires that you see the potential of the most fulfilling life imaginable for you. So this is something, another like kind of another place where the internal divide is placed is there. So we're kind of like detectives for like division, as signs of like, okay, this is the thing that we're trying to reconcile here. And one of them is that, your life is made meaningful by changing other people's lives, in this way that's like, to change your own life would be like somehow like selfish or not like whatever, that it's like, the idea that to elevate your own life and to change the aliveness in you, that would be like, that's the reward you get for changing other people's lives. You can see how the order of operations in this is shifted just enough that it makes attainment pretty much like close to impossible, because if we're not starting from the inside, if we're not filling ourselves with a feeling of aliveness, if we're not shedding these adaptations and divisions, that this idea of like helping everybody from this place where, our cup isn't even full is lunacy. I mean, it's lunacy. It's a trick. It's a trick. It's like another kind of thing of control, which is like to feel really bad that you'd be doing things that are like self-fulfilling, and that somehow it's great to be doing it for other people, because somehow those other people have some kind of more deservingness to be receiving. It's like the math doesn't math. And honestly, the where this came through was in like pretty, in like, so I did a trip to India where I spent, I don't know, a long while in India, and I studied with some teachers, did some yoga with some teachers, took some classes, and also in other places in Asia. And I remember being a bit surprised that that was the real like emerging notion, was this thing that I had to like put my own enrichment first and my own aliveness first. It really clanged and went into contrast with a lot of my belief systems, because it was like, well, I need to figure out how to like change the world with what I'm doing, or like how to find at the time there was a lot of stuff, still quite a bit of it around like sort of career and contribution and work. So yeah, it's kind of worth just pointing out. But anyway, so I'll keep reading. So in the sixth hub, we access inner vision and memory, which can involve seeing things we may not want to or be ready to see. When we envision and perceive, we're using a mixture of insights, a patchwork of images and ideas reimagined and reorganized from previous experiences to make sense of new ones. Perception is prediction based on what we've already seen and experienced, combined with the internal force of our unique emblem. Our unique self, our unique integrity, our unique kind of aspects. So that's in, I think, chapter 3. To see more and to gain access to greater visionary capability, we must tolerate discomfort and increase our capacity to withstand the dissonance of encountering the unfamiliar without negating or defending against it as foreign, and therefore reflexively interpreting it as hostile. So I'm going to repeat that. To see more and to gain access to greater visionary capability, we must tolerate discomfort and increase our capacity to withstand the dissonance of encountering the unfamiliar without negating or defending against it as foreign, and therefore reflexively interpreting it as hostile. The more facts and inputs our inner database contain, the more we have to build with. But beware, not all previous experiences are quality building materials. In earlier chapters, I discuss how familiarity is conflated with safety for better or worse. Biases and negative beliefs are also filed away in our database. So we must proceed with caution and awareness as we explore this hub. And by the way, these biases and negative beliefs they're not tagged, like they're in the same, they're categorized and they're indexed and alphabetized with the same things. And what we need to like the way rather to be able to start to distinguish has to do with the work in the lower hubs, or reducing the noise of fear and shame, and even like just some, and like guilt, isolate, like loneliness, isolation, like these things, grief, that the noise, that noise dies down more, so that we can actually use the divining rod of the kite, which is like, you can feel what has this kind of like natural sort of buoyance, and you can feel what just doesn't. And so it gets to the point, and we'll talk about it here, where even watching things, where you can feel like, even though you're liking watching it. So there was something I was watching last night, and I just had to stop watching. I wanted to watch it, and it was like, yeah, this is doing something. I can feel like it's like a draining factor. And I like it's kind of an interesting thing, because it's like this thing where it's like, oh, I really kind of want to watch this. What was it? I wish this would be a lot more interesting if I could remember exactly what it was. Oh, it was a comedian. And I was kind of like, yeah, just from a point of being sort of like interested and curious about things that I don't agree with. And it didn't matter. Like there was something, it was just so like that there was just something about it that it was like the feeling of it. I was like, this isn't good for me to hear this. So it's like the cognitive part of me was like, oh, I'd like to just sort of watch how ridiculous this guy is. And just kind of just added, and there was like, it was almost like my heart was like, this is mean to me, because it was misogynist. So you could like feeling that. There's that. Okay. When we work to expand our capabilities here, we know to expect the cross currents of limiting beliefs, and we see them as signs that we're doing the work to press forward into new horizons and possibilities. When the crosswinds start blowing, often rattling our resolve, we will feel the gale force winds of, who am I to do this? Who am I to do this? Or perhaps I'm not smart or talented enough. And other effective forms of resistance used to test our fortitude. When you want to grow, you can expect resistance to knock on your door. If you're prepared for its company, you can let it in and play with it to expose it for what it is. Early programming. See the exercise in chapter 12. I'm looking forward to that. Try to be ready. Try not to let it take you by surprise. You can even be encouraged by the kind of discomfort that signals imminent transformation. Yeah. Yeah, that's come up recently, which is like this thing of, back to what I discussed a little bit in the last, I think, two videos, or actually only one now because one didn't have the sound. Um, is this thing about like, I know how to do it and I'm not doing it. So this kind of is like further evidence that I'm lazy or an asshole or incompetent or whatever this like the shitty narrative is. Um, One of the other forces to consider in that is resistance. So there's like just little hairs like floating in front of my face. I'm just moving them aside. I guess there's like a gradual bang on the side that has some hairs or something like that. Is resistance, which is so, it can be made into like a very like, sort of like a spiritual thing, where it's like it's the gods of whatever, which is fine. Go for it. Um, there's just also the practicality of like doing something that is going to materially change your life, and the sense that it's going to materially change, and it doesn't need to be this grandiose thing. It can just be understanding that like you're going to be shifted by this, and even intuitively knowing that that's going to change the way you can interact with people. It'll change, yeah. Oh my god, this is really annoying. It's like there's like 3 hairs and they're like driving me nuts. Um, so resistance. So it's the more there's this sense that this thing that you're putting off or you don't want to do, um, the strength of it, is it really relates to, like I want to sort of like recontextualize this, which is like kind of the laziness or the slowing downness or the restingness or whatever combination of that being something that, very likely like you need, especially if you're getting ready to do something big, or do something transformative or breakthrough or new. Um, there is a part of that like rest is sort of part of the, you know, Thomas of it, the rest, the downflow of it. But there's also something which is like the resistance of like like change into an unfamiliar future. And just being patient with that. Like a lot of this is just being able to consciously hold that notion and with like just and just like kind of allow that to be something that's like, okay, not something where it's like, oh, now I see what it is. Gotcha. There's a little bit of this that a lot of it of this, which is like showing up and in this. And I don't know if I even know how to describe that, the mix between the like effort and the effort. The cage of language. There's 2 words. There should be 2 words there. There should be 2 words. There should be effort and effort, which is like this effort, which is like actually, it's like the kite analogy from the last time, which is like there's this thing about like if you've ever flown a kite, which is like once it really like rips and like it's like it's really hard. Like if you remember, it's like, oh, it's like it's work. But it's also, like, not work. It's not like the kite is, like, passively working, but all manner of it is, like, it's requiring that you kinda, like, be there, showing up for it, like, steering it, like, working with it, being aware of it, but that it's, like, allowing the kite to kite and to sail and to and find those little sailing too, but I'll use kite. I like kite. There's something about kite, because it's, like, so. Anyway, okay. So when we can't conceive of a future we want for ourselves, we risk being hijacked to serve the creation of another's vision. When we lack awareness, the sense of safety and familiarity programmed into our limiting belief systems makes us vulnerable to people who can manipulate our deeper wants and desires. They paint a picture of a future before we consider what we want for ourselves. And if you're not careful, we wind up chasing dreams that aren't even ours, like careers, lifestyles, and monetary goals. There are plenty of people who pour their lives and careers into chasing a life they've never consciously evaluated, tending to assume that everyone wants this. Steve Jobs said, "People don't know what they want until you show it to them." That's why I never rely on market research. Our task is to read the things that are not yet on the page. Jobs likely meant that preference relies on a choice between known options and that he was bringing forward things previously unknown to the world. But he was also said to be acutely aware of the paradox in human psychology, the desire to be different while remaining safe. If we don't actively envision and seek to fill our inner database with new experiences, exposing ourselves to more options and alternatives, we may believe that the only options are the ones we know. The important differentiating aspects of our humanity and potential are at risk of being hidden in a blind spot and possibly missed entirely. Okay, we did it. A lot to consider there. A lot to consider there. And the thing is, I understand, I'm going to make one note here. I understand that this is actually something where it very easily could be externalized. You start looking at all the other people that are not doing this because there's so many of them. It's an epidemic. Like there's an epidemic of this, of people who have not ascended to this and are living lives that are prescribed to them. But I wanna caution against that because it's the lost opportunity in this, is to see, look how other people don't do this, and to really stay with this, and really stay with this as an expansion for your own capability in in your own vision, in your own imagination, in your own exploration of the impacts of belief systems that do not serve your greater good, and in biases that do not serve the good of other people and the harmony with others, that create a lot of divide. And most biases really have the notion of I'm different. my, reason, my reason for shitty behavior is justified, yours is not. It's like a big bias trend. So anyway, so that is it for now. Any comments, I certainly welcome them. Likes, whatever, subscribers, watches, whatever. I'm really happy to have you here. And so that's it for today. I appreciate you so much, and I can't wait to see you until I see you tomorrow. Bye.